Our first order of business is a review and approval of the minutes of the meeting held on October 18th, 2017. I think all the members received those minutes ahead of time.
Move to adopt unless changes are noted.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Second order of business is to review our financial status, looking at our current and estimated cash position. If you'll go on down a little bit more, Bill, that's the... Right there, perfect. As you can see, we, for 2017, we had committed to funding, this was approved in 2017, $667,000 in projects. So far, we've paid out $451,000 in projects, and we still have unpaid commitments of $224,000. This was as of 11/1. Our current cash position is $415,451. That's through the end of October. Projecting out for the last 2 months of the year, estimated $57,000 per month would be about $114,000. So that'd put us in a total cash plus expected revenues of $529,451. And you subtract the estimated remaining funds committed of $224,000. That'll leave us a year-end cash balance estimated at $305,000. And again, we like to stay in the $250,000 to $300,000 range just to have operating cash. Going into the first of the year, we have a lot of projects that we fund right off the first of the year and like to have that cash on hand to fund those until the revenue starts coming in towards the middle of the year. So, any questions on that? Okay. The next spread is our 5-year tax trend.
Plugged, Jerry.
I don't think we have that one up. But we'll just go over it. It's not something that we have to approve or anything. But in 2016, we collected $691,000 in hotel tax revenue. So far, year to date through October, we were at $565,000. And again, estimating approximately $57,000 a month. It'd be about $114,000. That'll leave us for a total estimated income of about $680,000. So that'll be down about $10,000 from 2016. I think we've talked about it before. The majority of that was due to ball games getting rained out, some tournaments getting rained out, and also the Miami game getting canceled too affected us. So anyway, I think we are right on track for 2017, close to where we were in 2016. Are there any questions on the financials? Okay. With no questions, I'd ask for approval of those financials.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay. Okay. We'll move right on to the agenda of the presentation by the O'Reilly Group. First, I'd like to welcome Mr. Tim O'Reilly and his team. I'll let you introduce your team as we go. You know, as was publicized back in July, there were requests at that time was a rebate of the hotel tax they generate that was estimated at $2.4 million and $300,000 cash payment over 3 years to be used for marketing. Just for clarification and visiting with our city attorney, we don't use the term abatement. An abatement is just a waiver of the tax. That's not something that's feasible. What we'll use is the term rebate or refund, where basically the tax is collected and then turned around and given back. So that's just for clarification purposes. At Mr. O'Reilly's request, I, along with Mayor Perrin and Operations Manager Ed Tanner, went to visit Mr. O'Reilly's Operations Center in Springfield back in August. I'd like to publicly thank Anthony Dida for taking us up there. I think Anthony's back there. Thank you for taking us up there and visiting with us also. The mayor is unable to attend today's meeting as he is representing us at the National League of Cities Convention in Charlotte, North Carolina. But he does send his best regards, and I know Mr. Tanner is here representing the city today. Mr. Tanner? Okay. We also have Bill Resnick, our CFO. Also like to welcome Mike Downing. He is our new Economic Development Officer for Momentum Jonesboro. Did I get that correct? Jonesboro Unlimited, okay, thank you. We did have a very good visit. We were in Springfield and were able to tour the O'Reilly Group's new operations facility and meet with his staff. I will say it was a first-class operation, and I personally feel confident that this group has the ability to construct and operate a facility of this size and nature. In that meeting, it was made clear that any decisions would need to be done after a presentation was made to the full commission, and that's where we are today. In preparation for today's meeting, I did send Mr. O'Reilly a list of questions that I felt would be asked in this meeting. I did this to make an efficient use of our time where he could address the major concerns in his opening remarks. I've also asked Shawnee Carrier with the Delta Center to provide us data on what other cities of similar size have done for incentive packages for similar developments. I've forwarded that information to the commissioners as well. I'm sure that'll be referenced in today's meeting. I just want everybody to be aware of what was sent out ahead of time. If there's any media that would like a copy of that information, just get with me or Bill Campbell after the meeting. We'll be glad to get that to you. Our goal is to provide as much data information as possible to the commissioners so that we can make a decision based on facts, and most importantly, on what is in the best interest of Jonesboro and the citizens we represent. I think it is important that the past is the past, and we need to focus on what is in the best interest of our future as a city. With that being said, and with several new commissioners, including myself, since the last presentation almost 2 years ago, I've asked Mr. O'Reilly to make a presentation with the basics again so that we're all on the same page. With that, I'll turn it over to Mr. O'Reilly and his team. And again, thank you for coming, Mr. O'Reilly.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan and commissioners. Appreciate you entertaining our discussion of this potential project. We've been in Jonesboro several times talking about this, and it's been a pleasure getting to know the community and getting to know Arkansas State University and all the fine folks that we have here. This area reminds me a lot of Springfield, Missouri, where I'm from and where our operations are based. We have had a lot of success there in other parts of the country, and we're lucky to be here and just talking about it. We feel lucky and fortunate to have the opportunity. So I want to make it clear there. First, made a lot of great friends in Jonesboro, and I think we have a great plan that we want to talk about today. And the main factors of that plan are really, I think, try to satisfy what I believe are your questions, as Mr. Morgan said, that what he sent, and that is, how do we all get comfortable with this? And we're really comfortable with it, and this is what we do every day, and it's what I've done for over a decade, and we have some of our folks at our company that have done it for a lot longer than that. But, the main question in my mind is, we're very comfortable with our success with this, and I think the question that the community has to ask, and is probably asking themselves, is how does this benefit the community? That we don't want a hotel to come in on the university campus and just serve itself, serve the financial gain of a private developer. And this hotel has been developed with a program in mind that's been around for probably 40 years. And Mr. John Q. Hammond's out of Springfield, and I was lucky enough to grow up in the city that he was from. And I've seen him develop and see his company develop from whenever I was this tall all the way on. And he had a very clear vision of how to create a successful hotel environment. And a lot of it involved thriving universities that where you could really form a partnership. And there was always a city component involved. There was always a joint venture. And the reason for that is that in order to size the convention center, so it will not just serve the facility itself, the hotel itself, it'll serve the community and generate hotel rooms that'll have economic impact, permeates throughout the community. You have to have a program that works, and so we're lucky enough to know about 50 of those around the country that Mr. Hammonds was a part of, and then the people that I have been lucky enough to hire have been a part of. So that's sort of what I want to talk about, and to begin that, we'll go over a little bit of the plan of this facility. I think you all know where it is on campus there, right by the football stadium, Convocation Stadium on Red Wolf Boulevard. This is the general size of it. You can see Red Wolf there on the side between Alumni Drive and the baseball stadium. And it's a 203-room facility, Embassy Suites by Hilton, very, very well known throughout the state and throughout the whole country as being a very beautiful, upscale place to have meetings and events. And again, that's the key. This facility, the way it's designed, is not just designed to make the success of our embassy, but it's designed to bring the number of people that will come to Jonesboro and stay in other hotels and spend their dollars at the restaurants here. I say our restaurants, and that's what I kind of feel like at this point. We've been at it for a while. But at the restaurants, shop, go to the gas stations here, and be here for 2.5 days. That's the average stay for a conference attendee. And so you can see this banquet hall that we have and the ballrooms, the junior ballrooms, and all the meeting space. It's critical to have this designed. And Steve Menton is an architect that works for me, and he worked for Mr. Hammonds for 30 years and designed over 70 hotels and 5 million square feet of meeting space. And so we've seen a lot of these facilities and what makes them work and not work. We size this with what works for Jonesboro and Arkansas State. So we used a 203-room Embassy Suites and then a 40,000 square foot convention center. And that banquet hall will seat about 750 people in a banquet. We can have overnight conferences of 800 people. The sweet spot is 300 to 500, right in the 400 range. And so you have 200 rooms. You can have 300 to 500 people coming to these conferences for statewide associations. And I'm lucky enough to have Rhonda Smith here, who is our corporate director of sales, and she's going to talk to you a little more about our sales strategy and how we fill this up and what the program is, to try to, see if you all are as comfortable as I am that this would be a successful venture that would benefit not only us, but the entire hotel community, all of the restaurants that are here, all of the shopping establishments, and more importantly, these types of facilities have been shown to spur economic growth and future construction, additional retail on a fairly significant scale. Because again, when you're bringing 400 people for 2 to 5 nights, what do they have to do in the evenings? We've all been to meetings, we've all been to conferences, we know that there is downtime in those, and so once the doors are open with this facility, once it's under construction, we've found in multiple different areas that are very similar to this. Normal, Illinois, where Illinois State is, there's a Marriott with a convention this size. Peoria, Illinois, home of Bradley University, an Embassy Suites this size had that effect. San Marcos, Texas, very similar facility, and I'll talk a little bit more about those in a minute. But the overriding factor is that it takes a joint venture. It takes an effort to get that size of convention and meeting space with a private hotel facility that then generates and permeates that spending opportunity or the economic opportunity. Here's some of the rooms and the layout there, and as you can see, it's a suite. Embassy Suites, you can tell by its name, it is a suite hotel that's bigger and larger than any other hotel that's in this city, so it's differentiated on a lot of different levels. It has a rate structure that's much higher. Your average rate structure here in Jonesboro is, I just looked it up, it is a $112 average daily rate. And that's what our competitive set, which would be the nicest hotels you have here, they have an average rate over the year of $112. Our starting rate would be in the $135 to $140 range. So with this size of facility, again, going back to the size of the banquet hall and how it can work, we would be bringing an entirely new customer and an entirely new group of people to Jonesboro. We would not be cannibalizing hotel rooms from other hotels, and that's why we build the space this size, and that's why we build it in the upper upscale segment of the industry, because it reaches a level of significance that we can attract the association business and the corporate business that we need to bring those new customers. So this facility is designed to bring new people to Jonesboro that haven't been here before, because you don't have the size facility to do that. And what we have found over, with my team, and then I've been able to hire folks that have been doing this for 3 or 4 decades, is that if you don't have that upper upscale hotel that has refined finishes and has something where it really has a wow factor when you go in, it becomes the center of the community, the center of the university, then it doesn't work. If you have a select service hotel that doesn't have upscale food and beverage and doesn't have the size of well, let me put it this way. If you have a select service hotel and then you put a convention center, it looks like this to some degree, but it doesn't work. And we found that, and we found that this is the recipe that is tried and true over multiple hotel projects. And so there's safety in that for me, looking at history in going through 2008, 2009, 2012, all the way up. That was a very differentiated business cycle, as we all know. We had a huge recession. These facilities performed excellently during that, and they didn't just cannibalize other limited service hotels. They continued to bring associations that continued to meet companies, and while the occupancy might have dipped a little bit, they performed incredibly well. Talk a little bit more about Embassy Suites in general later. This is the rendering of the exterior. We have all of the plans done. Our architect, Jerry Kilhoffner with Butler Rosenberry, she's done 30 of these size hotels and convention centers. She is our architect on a Embassy Suites Convention Center in Denton, Texas, that we're getting ready to open. That's a little on December 29th is our opening date. It's a little larger facility, but very similar to this. It has the Embassy Suites flag. It has an 80,000 square foot convention center, and it has a Houlihan's restaurant. And we found that combination with those 3 segments to be incredibly successful. The Houlihan's restaurant brings a diversity of menus from the upscale business traveler that wants a steak and a nice bottle of wine, all the way down to my kids who want mac and cheese and will make a mess and put food in their hair. So it's a great intersection of different types of culinary expectations and experiences. So let me move to a little revised version of a presentation we did. I can't believe it, but it's been back in 2014. And let's see if I can figure this out. Let's see, slideshow. Current slide. Okay. Does that work?
Yeah. Apparently, yeah. Tell me, you tell me when.
I was going to go to the first slide, but
Did we go back
Go
where
back.
it came from?
yeah. Easy to do.
I think. Let me see. That. Is that what you want?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so O'Reilly Hospitality Management, the way we're set up, that entity is a management company. It doesn't own anything. We do development management, and then we have an ownership entity. And the ownership entity we've set up is Jonesboro Hotel Partners. That's myself and some of my family members in the O'Reilly family. And we are excited to develop this hotel. And the background of that is our Embassy Suites in Denton, Texas, that we're getting ready to open. And the network that we've created with that hotel, we have a hotel in Little Rock, a Holiday Inn, has allowed us to really key into the associations and the corporate interests that we need to make this hotel successful. So that's an important piece of it. We started in 2007. You know, I always say we got our start from O'Reilly Auto Parts. I practiced law for 15 years and then got into the hotel business because I was representing people. But I grew up with the O'Reilly Auto Parts story unfolding from whenever I was a kid. There were, I think, 3 stores when I was born, and then now that just opened up 5,000 stores. So the only reason I say that is that it was great to see that success story, and we borrowed a lot of things that they do with our team members. We call everybody team members. We're kind of a really team member-centric company. Try to treat people well, and it's really paid off. We have a lot of award-winning hotels of different sizes and scopes. So just a little bit about me and our family. You know, I have 4 kids, and families first, and for myself and for our entire company. We manage and own hotels, Marriott Hotels, Hilton Hotels, IHG, which is Holiday Inn and Intercontinental, Choice Hotels, which has an upscale hotel called Cambria Suites, and we're developing 6 of those at this time. We have 6 hotels under construction. They're all on schedule, on budget, and so we know how to execute projects, and they're all over the country. So we've developed to where we have 1,400 team members in 8 states, and have a company that I'm very proud of. So we can get a lot done and are very well suited to execute this project. So as I said, the team that I've been able to recruit, being from Springfield, Missouri, encompasses a lot of John Q. Hammond's folks. So these are all the hotels that we have developed as a team with their experience, and the ones that are green and blue are the ones that we're either working on or getting ready to open around the country. You see Denton, McAllen, Texas, down in the Rio Grande Valley just opened. Phoenix is going to open here in a couple of days. And then we have several others in Bonita Springs, Florida. We have one in Sarasota, Florida, Louisville, Kentucky. So our company's grown, but we like university towns that are like Springfield, Missouri. This is the heart and soul of our company, is this type of area. It's a bit about our team experience, which was in that. We've done a lot of Embassy Suites. We've designed them, built them, and opened them successfully. Not one of the Embassy Suites that Mr. Hammond's developed or that we are developing have had any issues with regard to performance or distributing rooms outside of the hotel if they're properly sized. Like I said, a large convention center, a relatively small hotel means rooms that go out into the community, and I'll show you some statistics about that in a minute. That's our project list. I'd be glad to provide that for your review. A little bit about us. I mentioned Mr. Minton. He wasn't able to join us today, but his job is done to a large degree. He's designed this. We have construction-ready drawings. We have permits by the city. We can start construction within 30 to 60 days with this project. We have financing commitments. We have the equity. You know, we are trying to, through what we're going to ask from you all, is just create a business model that makes sense. I think all of us as business people or individuals participate in projects that have a chance where everybody can be successful. Not just O'Reilly Hospitality, not just Arkansas State University, and not just the citizens of Jonesboro. We want a win-win, rising tide lifts all boats kind of experience here. There are some of our wonderful personnel, and I wanted to introduce Kristen. She's a CPA with our company. She's here and handles a lot of the development dynamics with our financial package. And then John Bigler, he is our Director of Development Transactions. So they're with me today, along with Rhonda Smith, who I mentioned, who will be speaking with you here in a moment. And Rhonda, by the way, has been a part of being regional and having oversight over a lot of these Embassy Suites and Marriott facilities that I've been talking about. And she's seen them from the stage where you put the shovel in the ground and where you hire the people that have to start selling it, which we would do in this case, I mean, if we get this project off the ground, the first thing we do is hire a salesperson, find an office, and start selling for us and for the city of Jonesboro. So any dollars that we all contribute, and if it's a rebate or the money we're investing, starts off with those expenditures, and that's the most important thing to get it started off right. We start talking to state associations, to companies, to bring them to Jonesboro, and not just ones that have been here, like I said, ones that are new to Jonesboro. That's what we target. We don't want to, we want to serve the people and the community that's here, but our job is to bring new people to Jonesboro for economic benefit of ourselves and for the community as a whole. And then Darren Harrelson's a regional director of operations, and he is working furiously on some of these other projects that I've talked about. Hilton, we're a big fan of Hilton. They have a very powerful network when you get to the upper upscale and luxury segment. They have over 6,000 sales and marketing professionals, highly sophisticated revenue management and marketing and sales systems. They can connect us to all of the regional companies, associations, trade associations, any person or group that wants to do business. Hilton has a network that's very significant. So we tap into that, and for the benefit of Arkansas State, ourselves, and the city of Jonesboro. 10,000 established national accounts. That's the first thing we talk to Hilton. What national? We've already talked to them. Ron is going to talk to you a little bit. People are already coming to us, and we already have things that are on the books, and we don't even have a project started yet. So that shows you the demand that we have for this project. Hilton Loyalty, a lot of you probably are Hilton Honors members, 44 million. I think it's up to 50 million worldwide, 94 countries. It is the traveler's loyalty card of choice, and it is very strong. The Hilton engine is amazingly strong. And like I said, once you get into a space where you have an upper upscale hotel that has refinements and has a large meeting space, that's where it really kicks in. Okay, if it's a Hilton Garden Inn, which is a fantastic property, we have a couple of them, or a Hampton Inn, or one of a different property, it does a great job. But once you get into the upper upscale space and need them to collaborate with meeting space, that's when it really becomes important and essential to have the right brand. And Hilton is the right brand. Between Hilton and Marriott, they're the only two that I would trust with a project like this. Embassy Suites, as many of you know, is a different program than most other hotels. It has the 3 pillars of differentiation: the free made-to-order breakfast, the complimentary evening reception, and then they're all suites. There's several rooms, very nice hotels. You can spread out and really relax. They've got it down. Their rate as a national average is $162 ADR, average daily rate, for each room they sell in the United States. That's their average. And that's one of the points to be made. With your average rate here in Jonesboro at $112, and us, again, targeting $135 to $140, heading to $160 per night as soon as we can, it's a different market. Okay, what you have now is a great market. You have wonderful hotels here, but there's stratas of hotels, and you have to look at that. And so what we're doing is bringing a different customer to Jonesboro, as I've mentioned, and the Embassy Suites has the power to do that. Embassy Suites it draws leisure demand just by itself. People have staycations at Embassy Suites because of the pool and the free breakfast and the large reception areas that they have. And that's even more so in a university town when you're on a campus where you can actually walk and see your child that goes to Arkansas State, or the family that you have that's in Jonesboro. So it's uniquely positioned that its rate maintains on the weekends as much or more than it does on the week. And again, super important. If I'm in your chair and trying to decide whether this is a good decision or not, you're not going to just replicate the same types of hotels that you have. I wouldn't vote for that. You got to have a different product that produces the results that you want, in my humble opinion. And this is the conversation we've had all over the country, and we're continuing to have. So the financial piece to this, again, 40,000 square feet convention center that can house 800 overnight attendees, 203 rooms, 800 overnight attendees. And with the more normal number of attendees being 400 as an average. So you just do the math there, and you know it's going to produce room nights out into the community. And again, Rhonda will talk about the specific examples of historical facts that we have that support that. And it's not just, hey, we think this might happen. It's like we've seen it happen again and again and again. So if you look at bullet point 3, the group hotel room nights, and that's just larger associations, this 2 to 400 room or 2 to 400 person conference and event that would come to Jonesboro. First year would be 22,650 people, mostly new attendees, mostly new people to Jonesboro. 60% of those would be outside the embassy because we have corporate accounts that we will have. We'll have the Hilton reservation system where people can make reservations. So we'll have to actually be the center of attention. We'll serve basically in this community, since you don't have a CVB, we'll serve as the CVB in a lot of ways, and we will be setting blocks of rooms in different hotels around the city. So if we have a 400-person event and we can only accommodate 50 to 100 rooms, we'll have to work with the Hilton Garden Inn or the Courtyard or whatever hotel that we think complements our situation and whatever hotel that the meeting planners request. So we'll be placing blocks of room nights throughout the city on a very consistent basis because we'll have to in order to accommodate those. Again, that's where the trickle-down spending occurs. That's where we have people that haven't been to Jonesboro that are walking around Jonesboro, shopping, eating, going to different events, any type of entertainment that they can find. And if you look at the numbers, 60% of those just group rooms, that's not corporate rooms, that's not rooms that come off the website that are called transient rooms. That would be $1.6 million injected into the community in year one at $122 ADR. And so that's assuming that it's going to be a little lower ADR than what we have through year 10 of about $2.5 million. So total hotel room revenue over 10 years would be $21 million outside of our embassy suites. And those are estimates, again, that are based on projects that we have seen be developed and then walk through their existence into the 5 to 10 year range. So additional non-hotel expenditures, there are a lot of different estimates of this. We came to $110 as the most legitimate per day of what people spend outside their hotel room. And if you look at that, we're talking about over $60 million in 10 years of new spending in Jonesboro. Okay, huge numbers. And you think, how can that happen? But we've seen it happen in San Marcos, Texas, Norman, Oklahoma, Normal, Illinois, all university towns that have similar ADRs, probably lower ADRs whenever they started, average daily room rates than what you have here. So significant impacts, and that's not even counting weddings, social events, corporate events that we can't house because we have great demand based on just being in embassy suites. So incredible economic impact. And I'll show you a model impact study from Wichita Falls here in just a moment and show you these numbers are very similar to what is expected by other hotel projects in other cities. And please feel free to ask me any questions as we go along here. I don't want to just stand and talk the whole time. If there's anything that comes up that you'd like to talk in more detail about, please feel free. So the key points, I went over most of them. Any full service has to attract large quantities of people from all segments. You got to have an upper upscale hotel to do that has a larger convention center. If our convention center held a maximum of 200 people or 300 people, then the cannibalization of other hotel room nights would be a huge concern. But because we've sized it to house many more people than what we can accommodate in our facility, you know, and all that's not just altruism. We're not just trying to be a good neighbor, right? We're doing this because it's part of our partnership with Arkansas State. It's what they want to bring state associations, university associations. It's what the medical community wants, the hospitals on each side of us, to bring hospital association meetings to this city. So it preserves our chances of success. It accentuates our chances of success through recessionary times, through different economic cycles in dramatic fashion. And so, you know, if you're on a university campus, have two large hotel or two large hospital systems on either side of you, and in a thriving, growing community like Jonesboro, the chances of us not distributing these rooms out into the community, in my mind, are almost 0%, okay? I mean, and that's again, knowing what we know from similar projects all over the country. Huge point is, Embassy's a well-established name in the association market that Rhonda's going to talk about. People know from going to Rogers and Hot Springs, and really all over the country in the other cities that I've mentioned, that an Embassy upscale product with these types of convention centers is always going to be a great facility, and it's going to really do its job and make us for a successful event. So competition of groups between cities strong, and it will require a real integrated support of Arkansas State, the city, and the Chamber of Commerce in every facet. So, you know, we do have to work as a team. We do have to market as a team. And a lot of the dollars that we spend will be spent marketing this area, not just our hotel. One of the things we try to do to make ourselves different is sustainable building. This will be a LEED Gold certified building. We found, and I think the studies of the hotel industry show that the factor, one of the enormous factors in the next 5 to 10 years of where someone's going to want to stay is how sustainable you are. So we'll have solar panels. We have very high efficiency HVAC. We use local products. We try to use local craftsmen anytime we can. We recycle everything. We have verification of these things, and we save sometimes 30 to 40% in our projects of the utilities that are consumed by similarly sized hotels. So it's a big deal for us and a big part of our DNA. Here are some of the projects that have done in the past. The DoubleTree in Springfield's where our company started. It's number 8 in the world in guest service scores for DoubleTrees and remains that, even though it's an older hotel. We have Houlihan's. We have 3 Houlihan's restaurants. This will be our 5th. We're opening one in Denton, Texas. Like I said, we have Hilton Garden Inns there in Springfield. It only has 3,500 square feet of meeting space, so that's not something that generates hotel rooms out into the community. We have Yellowstone Valley Lodge in Livingston, Montana. I always got to put that in there. It's a very small part, but I like looking at the river and the mountains. So. And then these are some of the projects that I've mentioned that our team that used to be with Hammonds developed, and they're all extremely successful. Y'all, I'm sure, know the one in Rogers, Arkansas, and maybe have seen some of these others. But again, the Embassy brand is as powerful as powerful can be in our market. The one on the upper left-hand corner, that's the San Marcos, Texas. That's the most similar to this, and you know, in a university town, Texas State. It was built with the average daily rate of being $85. The same concerns that the city had, or that you all have, that city had, and that concern was, hey, we're gonna actually build this convention center, and what happens if the only person that benefits is John Q. Hammonds? And you know, that is a legitimate fear. There's no reason not to think about that and vet it out. But again, this is an example of what happened, that distributed thousands, hundreds of thousands of rooms out into the community now, and it's really been a staple of that university and the community. spurred development all around San Marcos over the last 10 years. A couple of other really nice, the Frisco, Texas project was incredibly successful. The Marriott in Normal, Illinois, 50,000 square feet convention center, very similar to this project in terms of its proximity to a university. Wildly successful hotel. It's the centerpiece of the community. It's where everybody meets. It's where everybody has, events. They have their weddings, birthdays. It's just, turns in to be the focal point of the community. This is the chateau at the lake at Table Rock Lake in Branson, Missouri, which Steve Minton and our team designed that. This is a look at these a similar convention center. Ours would be a little more modern than this. Classroom style conventions. You can see how many people you can get in these facilities comfortably. The couple of points I wanted to make that I haven't made. The ability to complete this project, is incredibly important. Obviously, you don't want a stalled project, and you want one that's going to actually be finished and open. It's a big concern. One of the things is anything we're asking in terms of a rebate from the A&P Commission, we don't need to see a dime of that until after we're open, right? So there's not one penny of rebate until we get open, do our job, finance everything, and get it all done. So that's important. We did have a cash component request for marketing expenses, but in order to try to facilitate the partnership, we decided that we would just ask for the strict rebate. The funds that we would use, a lot of the questions that are normally asked are, okay, what are you going to use these funds for? They're going to go to marketing. We have a large budget that covers operations, electric, utilities, salaries of all of our people, marketing, everything that we do. And so it's really hard to say we're going to put that money in this exact pot, of our expense chart. But what it does, a rebate by the A&P Commission helps finance this convention center. It allows us to build the convention center. And, and it allows us to build it in a size and scope that generates this permeated trickle-down spending throughout the community. And, that's where the money goes. And if you want to say where it's spent, that's the only place that really, that's a differentiator between us building a 203-room Embassy Suites with 5,000 square feet of meeting space on Arkansas State campus. We can still accomplish a lot, but it has no community impact. Right? We house everything we do, and it's within our four walls, and that's it. So that's the difference, and that's why we're here today talking to you all. And this is the Houlihan's, new Houlihan's prototype. And if any of you all are in Dallas, please stop by our facility there in Denton, Texas, North Dallas, and see the new Houlihan's. It'll be very similar to what we want to do here. The other issue, our requests have changed to the A&P Commission over time. We started off with one request that I think had a cash component, a rebate component, and it's altered, and it's kind of gone with the economic model and things that have occurred. The unfortunate things about delays that happen in projects and the whole issue of having two projects go at the same time, that gives anybody with common sense a pause, right? If you have two convention centers that are the same size, you're going to pause and you're going to rethink things. But during that time frame, unfortunately, construction prices rose dramatically. And we went from a point where we could get it done without an A&P rebate. We had actual construction costs of $35 million in 2015 and early 16. Okay, that went to $37 million in February of 2016. And then when they actually went out to bid, it went to $43 million. So it went from 35 to 36 and almost $37 million, up to $43 million in May of 2017. And so at that point, it became clear that we needed to change our request. And, I have those, I went and looked at all those 2 nights ago and can give you specific dates and specific things that we were looking at. Part of it was bad estimating by our general contractors. And, some of them, when they don't know that the project is definite, maybe don't put as much time and effort into it. But when we went to actually price the thing with prices going like this nationwide for a number of reasons, it cost a lot more than what we had originally anticipated and turned the business model on its head. And that's just the way it happened. So we came back with a new request. Now let me talk for just a moment about before I get into what that request is, but I want to talk about some of the other projects that we have specific knowledge of. Normally, there's a lot of different ways to do these types of public-private projects. Normally, I'd say in the past, the Hammonds model was that the city would build the convention center. And if a city builds a convention center, it can be anywhere from $10 to $25 million. And the city takes all the risk with that convention center, and then taxes generated are used to pay that back. So in San Marcos, Texas, for instance, the city actually built the convention center, owns it, and then leased it back to the Hammonds Group. There was a 22-year commitment of hotel tax to pay down that debt. And again, that's a situation, the city has all the risk of that facility, very different from what we're offering to do here. We're offering to take all the risk in the whole facility. If the economy tanks, recession comes, that's on us, and that will be something that we'll have to deal with, and it won't harm the A&P Commission or the city in any way. The Frisco Embassy Suites, the city donated 12 acres of land that would be $10 to $15 million value to the private developer, and then built the garage and convention center and now leases it back to the Hammonds Group. Our Denton Embassy Suites, 318 suites, 80,000 square feet of meeting space. We have a deal with the city for a full, in that case, it's called an abatement. It's a different program, but of hotel tax, property tax, and sales tax. So it's a 25-year term, okay? And so it has an estimated worth based on our pro forma of $54 million. And that's how we got that project off the ground, and that's, the city of Denton saw the wisdom in that and all of these issues that we're talking about, because it has a 300 suite embassy, and then it can house up to 1,000 overnight attendees. So
What's your total cost in that project?
that's a $91 million project. Let me see, there's another one I wanted to point out. The Rogers, Arkansas Embassy, and some of these things, we have some knowledge of it, and whether some of it's has been reported or not, but our team was there, and there was a actual donation of land for the Rogers project of 12 acres. And then there's a lease that is paid by taxes generated. So it's a common theme that the taxes generated by the project pay for the component of the project that it is impactful to the entire community. That's a common thread in everything that I think Mr. Hammonds did and everything that we're trying to do. East Peoria, where the embassy is there that Mr. Hammonds did, 40,000 square feet convention center. Again, a $20 million convention center and a 22-year commitment of hotel tax to pay that debt back. The city sold bonds, paid for the convention center, and they owned it, assumed all the risk. If it burned down or it didn't operate, that was on the city. So very different from this situation. So that's why I've said many times that this is the lightest incentivized deal that we've been a part of, and that's the reason, because we take all the risk and the amount of money is much lower than any of these other projects that we've done or that our company, that our team has done. And that's not a bad thing. I mean, I think, there are differences in every city, every deal's different, so it's not a negative that we're here talking about this and that statement. I think we're just trying to reach an agreement that's workable for everybody, where everybody wins. That's truly what I'm here to try to facilitate. So the incentives of this project, Arkansas State was good enough to help us with a Delta Regional Authority grant of $400,000, and that's a grant that we'll be able to obtain. We are going to try together for another grant of $250,000, and we haven't made that application yet. We have a
Is that with the ASU land, the $250,000 that you're asking?
no, that's a grant that would be from the Delta Region.
Delta Regional? Okay.
Yeah. So Arkansas State's not paying money except for their our negotiation of the land lease. There is a 3-year moratorium on lease payments to allow us to get up and running and stabilized. So that's another incentive. So one of the big components of this that is very unique is our partnership with Arkansas State relating to their hospitality program. And we're going to serve as a facility that actually is the headquarters of that program. We've been talking about it for a long time. We talked about it for a while today. Very exciting part of it. It's very unique nationally. We can help start a program that can be the center of recruitment for our company. It can start a hospitality major for Arkansas State that they actually don't have at this point. And so because of us being on site and the facilities being used for the hospitality program, we are able to not pay property tax, is the I guess, legal opinions that we've been given. And over 10 years, that's $4.1 million. Present value, if we were looking at what it's worth today, of about $3.3 million. So that's the incentive package, and it's a lot less than we're getting in other places, but I believe in Jonesboro, I believe in Arkansas State. I think we will all be very successful here if we're able to do this project. But with, and what we're asking from the A&P Commission is a complete rebate of the A&P tax, the 3% A&P tax over a 10-year period. And we're not asking for any cash payment, like I said. We're asking for that rebate, which isn't paid except for what we generate within our 4 walls. It doesn't come out of anyone's pocket except for what we are responsible for. It is part of, again, what pays for a large convention center that is very dynamic to the economy and will produce both development and an incredible amount of tax resources for the commission, for the city, for the state of Arkansas as well. So this money would be used to fund the convention center, which, as I've said, is our community economic engine. That is hard to imagine the size and scope unless you've seen these facilities and how they work. We're taking all the risk. None of that risk we're asking of the city, of the A&P Commission. Whatever we get in terms of a rebate, we generate. And it's a success, I guess, repayment. The more we generate, the more the rebate is. So it is an incentivized deal for us to perform well from the very beginning. The community benefits, we benefit, as I said. We want the rising tide to lift all boats. We've found a great partner with Arkansas State, and we want to continue that for the rest of the time that we're here. We're long-term holders. This is an O'Reilly family project. This is not something we want to do and try to flip to the highest bidder. We'll be here. We'll be a part of the community. We'll be supporting the community, and we just need it to be a partnership. And with this abatement, we can start. We're going to have to. We have a commitment for financing for our senior debt. We have the equity committed. We have Clark Construction Company that is ready to go. And I could probably text them and get them started today, as anxious as they are. I know they've worked with Arkansas State before, and they're a good partner. So we are happy to have Clark Construction and, like I said, our architect, Jerry Kilhoffner with Butler Rosenberry. The plans are done, all the permits are ready. So within 30 to 60 days, we would start if we can make this happen with this rebate. You know, our group luckily is well-funded with the success of O'Reilly Auto Parts, and we're able to do this project and able to accomplish it without really any risk whatsoever to our family, my kids, my wife, anybody else. So the one thing I wanted to do, and I can answer questions afterwards, but because it's so significant, I think the question of how are we going to fill this hotel and more importantly, how are we going to fill the convention center so it spills out into the community, right? That's the big question for everyone, I think. And that's how we'll be successful, and that's how the city will be successful. And like I said, Rhonda Smith has been around these projects and seen how they act, from putting a shovel in the ground, what you do, and then what happens if you do it right in terms of you know, associations and who we can market to. So I'll turn it over to Rhonda here for a minute, and I'll be glad to answer questions later.
Thank you. Hi. As Tim mentioned, I've had the pleasure of overseeing the pre-sale for new hotels since 2004. And it's not uncommon for the current hoteliers, even the community, to feel a little bit uneasy. How are we going to fill it? How is this going to benefit us, or is it just going to take away from our occupancy? Fortunately, we have a lot of history on this, and it doesn't take long before they realize that it's all about the benefit. So I oversee a team that has already started selling Jonesboro. We have our Little Rock Holiday Inn, work with many associations. So we've started the conversation about a year ago with the associations as they come in. Are you on rotation? Where else do you use? And the association market does rotate. So Bentonville, Hot Springs, Little Rock, and we have some very interested parties in Jonesboro. As a matter of fact, through just the direct solicitation at our current property, we have 4 associations that I'm on the phone with monthly, giving them an update as to where we're at. They're ready for commitment. They're ready to get contracts signed. So that's a very exciting, prospect for Jonesboro, most certainly. In San Marcos, it was really interesting because there's nothing out there. The corporate business is nil, not at all. So it was university. They're 50 miles from the Capitol, and that's what we focused on. So the first thing we do, as Tim mentioned, as soon as that shovel hits the ground, we get our director of sales, who then starts getting a sales force. But we're working directly with Hilton, who already has 25 to 35 people. The minute you say, we're ready to go, they will start going through the technology that they have, which is an insight program that allows them to find any group or business that can fit into a convention center our size. And then they start sourcing leads through a system called Cvent. So we will begin getting leads the minute we flip the switch and say we're ready to start booking business. And so that's from the Hilton perspective. And then on the ground, it is boots on the ground. We will have a sales team of 6 to 8 people selling the property. They will be going to the regional locations. They will be making an awful lot of prospecting calls. So the pre-sale efforts that's the most important thing in this, is making sure that we get somebody there immediately to start selling it. We use a system called a reader board service, where we're able to see what's going on in other markets and other hotels, and we pick up the phone and we solicit their business and get them to Jonesboro. So with our Embassy Suites in Denton, it'll be opening here at the end of the month, and we will open with a little over $3 million of business on the books. This was an interesting project because it's actually my hometown as well, and I heard the nervousness, and people were very unsure. We have limited service properties, and their thought was they're going to come in and take our business. Fortunately, a year later, we can't get enough thank you and praise because it's already increased the ADR of our smaller hotels. And just the overflow alone, which is what we refer to when we share the group business, has been tremendous. So we went from a very nervous community to nothing but praise and thank you at this time. So, it does work. As Tim mentioned, San Marcos, Norman, Oklahoma, all the same. People were very nervous. The hoteliers, would snub you the first few months until they realize that we're here to share the business and that if they're really smart hoteliers, their ADR will float not far off of ours. So everybody benefits. The incremental spend in the community, $100+ per person per day, will do nothing but benefit the community. So we have an excellent sales plan. We have an excellent relationship with Hilton. They want nothing more than to see us all succeed. They have national salespeople that sell for group, and they have national salespeople that focus on just the individual travelers. And so you build a hotel of this caliber near a university. We also see our social market just spike between the galas and all the weddings that are coming back because they met here. This is where they're getting married. So the benefits are endless there. I have a total of $330,000 in group rooms and $108,000 in food and beverage of associations that I've personally communicated with. So we have 3 that are ready to sign on the dotted line, 1 that's very interested, and I'm just keep putting them off another month to see what we can do. Any questions that I can help answer? Anything, Tim, that you want me to speak on? Anything addition to that? Good?
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tim, I guess we'll open it up for questions.
I had a couple of documents.
Yeah, yes.
To show
Yeah.
mine while we're all here and talking. Let me see if I can. Escape. You can tell I am technologically challenged. So a couple of things that I didn't talk about, and we talk about economic impact a lot in these projects, and we're having these conversations. It's very common. If I can reduce this, there we go. Everybody still see that? So this was this document was produced by the Delta Center at Arkansas State, or associated with Arkansas State, a couple of years ago. And, the 3 benefits that you look for are your benefits during construction. You're generating a lot of jobs, you're purchasing a lot of stuff, you got a lot of activity. And so that's an economic engine in and of itself, just in the construction process. So all we've been talking about is the operations and how that flows out in the community. So, if you look at these numbers, they're kind of staggering. And, I always question these when I look at them. I'm not an economist, but if I look at direct effect and indirect effect, my understanding of those things are that they're based on the jobs that permeate from not just the facility, but what happens outside the facility. So if you have this idea of spending that occurs in businesses and restaurants and everything, you're going to generate other jobs than just happen in other projects. So that's why the numbers are high. We'll have about 200 people in our permanent facility that are full and part-time. And so that'll be a lot of jobs, a lot of training, a lot of internships with the university. But there's also a much wider direct economic effect, both in construction and then when the permanent facility is there. So that's one I thought I would show. And just as a, I guess, support, there are a lot of companies that do impact analysis for these things. And CB Richard Ellis is one of them. HVS is another, and that's Hospitality Valuation Systems. And I wanted to show you one of those. And this is a project, a recent project that they were evaluating. in Wichita Falls, Texas, which is where, I believe, Midwestern University, is that right? I believe that's the case. But we found this through, one of my regional directors had come into contact with this, but this is CBRE Hotel Group, and they did an economic impact analysis. And if you look at, it's for a 150-room Marriott Delta property, and it is 10,000 square feet in meeting space is what I found. And if you look at the impact summary of the economic impact, total economic impact of $73,900,000. The city of Wichita Falls is about 100,000 people, so a little larger than Jonesboro. So this shows you that the Delta Center and what they found is very normal for this type of project and the impact that it would have. So, and we have a lot of these, and they're for different projects, and they're not, people have cities, commissions, universities have purchased them, and so we're not at liberty to distribute them because they're not ours. But I did want to show you that, and it just, I think, gives a little bit of support that these are just normal numbers, and they're astounding, and they're significant, and they're hard for me to comprehend in a lot of ways. But then when you see them, and you see it happen, and you see the vibrancy that it creates in the community, it makes it very achievable. So I appreciate your time, and I didn't let, I'm sorry, Ron had one more thing? Go ahead.
One more thing, thank you. I didn't address the, just being able to work directly with the Convocation Center and how we might be able to utilize both. There'll be many opportunities with the size of the associations. They can be 800 to 1,000 people. We really will utilize both facilities. They have breakouts, they have their general session, and then, of course, their food and beverage throughout the day. So I see a lot of opportunity for mutually using both properties.
Good deal.
That's now called the First National Bank Center, too, so.
Is that right? Okay.
Which will be Arena. Sorry, Terry. I knew.
Thank you for making that point. I forgot that. I didn't forget much else, but. I'd be, again, I appreciate your time here today. I appreciate your consideration. I know it's a difficult decision to make. It's one that requires a lot of analysis. I know you've been thinking about it and strategizing about it for a long time. The increase in construction prices is not something that I wanted. Believe me, if it was back at the amount that we started, we would have already had half the thing built. And unfortunately, the economics just changed. And I hate that, and I hate coming, having to change the deal and change the request, but we also have to react to reality, what the business model is, and that's what we're trying to do. So again, I appreciate your time. We appreciate the conversation with the city of Jonesboro and the mayor, and the university, Arkansas State, has been great, a great partner, and any questions that y'all have, I'd be glad to answer.
The cost, you said 43 million, that's just the building, not the contents, is that correct? What's the total between the two?
Total with all soft costs is $59 to $60 million.
Okay.
And that's design, FF&E, everything else associated with it.
So the amount you need to make your numbers work is approximately 2.4 million, is that correct?
It's the exact number, if on our pro forma, if you add it up, it's
I think it's
2 million for.
just over $2.5 million.
Okay.
And if you look at it, you can look at it a lot of different ways. Again, I'm not an economist, but you look at it, if you're writing a check today, a present value of that, not giving it over time, is about $1.7 million.
So roughly the incentives, I'm figuring up close to 8.6 million, and that's the request of 2.5 million, the Delta Center money that you've already received, the property tax, and the 3 years on the lease. I'm coming up to about 8.6 million, which roughly equates to about 13% of the total project costs. And comparing it to other cities, I guess just a comparison, does that fall in line? You're saying that's well below what other cities have done for similar projects?
You know, it's a lot lower percentage than we would normally see. If you take, like I said, Denton, $91 million project, and there's $25 million rebates, so that's a 30%. And that's paying for the convention center. It's basically what the city agreed to do. The risk reward is what's different. You know, a lot of the projects where I said the city built it and then they're responsible for it, and they have to maintain it, and they have to finance it if times are bad. You know, there's still probably a much higher percentage in that, but it's hard to compare apples to apples in those types of incentives. But it's a significant incentive that allows this project to produce a 6 to 7% return on the equity paid by the partners in the project. And that's relatively low. We're still doing whatever we can to find other types of incentives and other assistance, but it's at a place, considering the investment I have, the partnerships that we can have with Jonesboro and the university, that have a lot of other ramifications, you know, for future development, for recruitment in the hospitality program. There are a lot of ancillary benefits that we're willing to move forward with that type of range when we probably wouldn't in other cases.
So depending on the outcome today, you've got Clark construction ready to go, and y'all would mobilize and start within 30 or 60 days?
Yes.
Okay.
And I can say that with a lot of confidence. And we've worked with Clark. They're the ones doing our project in Denton, and we have several other projects going with them. We have a great relationship, and they're confident. Their numbers, they're very good at what they do, so we can be secure in their numbers, and we're ready to go.
I just say that, you know, based on obviously the history of the convention centers here, you know, it's obviously drug out for us and you, and I think we would just need to give the citizens some sort of comfort that if we do make a commitment, that it's not going to be another 6 months or a year and seeing. So I would just suggest whatever commitment we do to make, that we have to put some sort of deadline in there to see that it comes to fruition sooner than later. So.
Yeah, and we have a few things, like I said, you know, a couple of things in appraisal and finalizing the loan documents. We already have a commitment, but I would welcome a deadline that's in that time frame. That's, you know, and we would have to have a conversation, but we would have it in a short time period. Be agreeable to the deadline to start construction.
Yeah, I think, just speaking for the group, I think the biggest, you know, heartburn we have obviously is, and you've explained it, but, you know, 2 years ago, you're going to be able to do it without any incentive, and now asking for $2.5 million of money that would come back to us. And I guess, I don't think it's a question of if or how much. I guess the question is how much compared to doing something, and that's kind of where we're at, is trying to figure that out. And I mean, I do appreciate y'all coming down and making a presentation. Other questions?
I think I'd like to hear from Chancellor Damphus, you know, before we start having more discussion, just kind of on ASU's position. You mentioned the hospitality program, and I mean, just, I think I'd just like to hear from all parties involved before we start having a discussion, if that's okay.
Sure. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I've not had a chance to meet all of you yet, but it's a pleasure to meet with you. It's my first time before the commission. I will say that the first time the Convention Center and Hotel came to my attention was in April, when I was applying for the job as chancellor at Arkansas State University. And I actually made that not the centerpiece of my presentation for my job interview, but a signal of the future for our university. I thought this was a very innovative project for us, and I thought it provided a really great opportunity. I've worked at and gone to school at many very fine institutions, two of which had a hotel and convention center on their campus, Sam Houston State and Texas A&M, and those were the center of those campuses. A lot of life happened there, and a lot of guests stayed there. I worked most recently at the University of Oklahoma, which yearned for an on-campus hotel. It actually had a very poorly, little used hotel on campus. Embassy Suites actually came in and built a convention center about 5 miles away, and most folks on OU's campus wish that it was on our campus because it made it so much easier for the campus to host guests and so on. The university remains committed to this project. We believe that it will have a huge impact on our current First National Bank Arena, which can host many more events than it is currently hosting. So we think that's a great benefit there. We also think it'll have a huge impact on our educational program. We can recruit students to come here and take classes in hospitality management. We currently have already created a program within the business school. It's not a degree program yet, but we have invested in hiring a faculty member to come. So we have one professor here who teaches in that area. If the convention center came, we would invest more by creating an undergraduate degree program, and we would hire more faculty to teach in that program. I think there's a great opportunity for our students to have internships and to work very closely with the convention center when it's here. So we think that there's great opportunities here. We have been acting at our university with the full expectation that the hotel and convention center would be built. Our band practiced at the location, the proposed location of the hotel. In anticipation of construction starting this fall, we moved the band practice facility down south of the current location, invested some resources in creating that new outdoor classroom. We also suspended parking in that area. That used to be a parking spot for football parking on game day, and we suspended that through the season because we thought it was going to happen. But we have this expectation of the facility being built and are very supportive of it as well. So I appreciate the opportunity to share those thoughts, and thank you for considering the request.
Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you. Tim, I guess open it up for questions.
Well, I don't really have a question, but I'm going to just say a few words. I have the pleasure of serving on the city council as Mr. Gibson does also, and I'm chairman of the finance committee. So one of the things that, obviously as we look down the road in Jonesboro and looking at additional forms of revenue is also helping to maximize our current forms of revenue, which obviously sales tax is our major goal. And I think this project would have a pretty significant, benefit from the sales tax front. And one of the things that Mayor Perrin has been talking about, as we face some, challenges of still investing in our infrastructure and, providing our citizens and visitors the services that they need is, this type of partnership. This would truly be an A&P partnership, a city partnership, an ASU partnership, and a private partnership. So I think this kind of fits in the model that Mayor Perrin has been referring to as ways for Jonesboro to continue to grow smartly. So I'm hopeful that we can come up with a reasonable solution for this.
Okay. Other questions of Mr. O'Reilly? Dan, anything from the hotel standpoint?
Well, as she explained it, it makes good sense, I think, and I do anticipate some sort of drop down, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, for the first couple of years or something, and then it'll start to pick back up. That's what I'm anticipating on the rest of the hotels that are here. I don't know if you have any data to support such things from the other conventions that happen, that you have done so similar size.
Yep, I think we have found that that's not the case.
Not the case, okay.
Yeah, and again, it's a lot of it's rate strategy, and our rate strategy is going to be in the upper upscale segment.
Yeah, and I've had a chance to look at this, study that was done by ASU, and it pretty much shows what you're saying on there. So,
And it does say that, and then the other projects, like I said, I think San Marcos is probably the best example of that. If you, absolutely, she was there. So.
okay.
Yes, I was. And even, Denton, speaking of that, we don't anticipate a drop down. We've never seen a drop down because the pre-sale efforts start immediately. So once the hotel opens, we've got business on the books, millions of dollars of business on the books, and we've already shared some of that business with with our
With the other
sister
hotel-
hotels in the
sister
community.
hotels,
So, yeah, we really haven't seen a decline or a drop. And as a matter of fact, if the room nights, have increased, but the ADR is what's significant.
Right, yeah.
Sometimes that'll take a $20 to $30 increase.
And I think this, your focus is more on weekends, is that correct, or do you?
Both. No, absolutely
You-
both. We have our conventions and our association business that'll primarily be weekdays. And association business is a great shoulder business. So it'll come in on a Thursday or maybe arrive on a Sunday,
Right.
which is hard to attract corporations. So your Tuesday, Wednesday are your business travelers. And then, of course, your social is all weekend. So
Yeah,
we'll
see,
have a
that
very
is where,
steady increase.
yeah, the weekends is where we need help in our town.
And we will
And
certainly
That's where we
bring.
need to focus
Certainly
on.
bring that, absolutely.
Yeah.
Galas, social events, and probably the biggest surprise to me was everybody returning to the place they met to get married.
Right?
So just, with UNT being in Denton, seeing the number of weddings that we have on the books, and I mean, the weekends have just really surprised me. It's huge how much business we can get in there. And then the staycations, people that want to come from around Arkansas. We do a great pool. It's a full cook-to-order breakfast, 2 hours of cocktails for the parents, and a 2-room suite. So it's a real easy way to vacation in your own state. And we'll certainly be promoting that. And the brand, as you all hear, Embassy Suites commercials and Hilton commercials, they promote it. So,
And just to clarify, I think what Joe mentioned, I think for clarification, we are not, or you are not asking for a rebate of the sales tax, just the hotel tax, which is in addition to the sales tax. So I think that's a point we need to make sure is clear in this request.
3% E&P taxes. So, thank you. One point I neglected to make is I appreciate you all accommodating us on kind of a short time frame here. And the reason it's important for us to start this is that year end is a real time for construction price increases. And I've been in projects where this project is one of them where prices increase and we end up chasing our tail around about something that we can't control, and it's hard to control. Right now, we have pricing that is definite, and Clark says they can hold that until the end of the year. But then after that, there's elevator increases, there's union increases, and there's things that just happen, and it becomes extremely hard to control after that time. So.
I will say, I did talk to, I think it's important that some of the main people that would be involved or affected by this would be the hoteliers. I did talk to Naz Kazi, visited with him yesterday, and today, he was very active in the A&P Commission and owns a couple of other hotels now and has the new Holiday Inn, correct, not Holiday Inn Express, going up. And he stated that he would feel comfortable with the 10-year abatement, 10-year rebate, as long as there was not any cash incentive that went along with it. He said that he felt like there might be some short-term dip in his business because of it, maybe not, but he stated that he thought it was in the best interest of Jonesboro for the next 10, 20 years to have it. So I just wanted to note that, and he told me I could make that public comment because Naz was very active on this board, and I think it's important to note his thoughts because he's probably one of the biggest hoteliers in town currently. Would that be correct, man?
That is correct.
And with the overflow, we would still be generating A&P money off this project.
Right.
That would be able to use elsewhere, so.
And overall impact of, the revenue for the city, it's tremendous in my
Yeah,
opinion.
'cause one of the issues that was brought up before, like when cash was going out, was there's a lot of entities in Jonesboro that really need that money. So when the A&P money was, not just being rebated, but was also cash out, a lot of needy entities weren't getting that money. So, I really appreciate the fact that you're not asking for cash out of pocket right now. So thank you.
That helps us with continue what we've been doing with
Right.
that A&P money, so that's really great help.
Your first 5 years on your
pro forma is about $1.1 million, 1096. You got any wiggle room that we might could give you that? And then 150 cap per year on the next 5 years. We'd like to see if you could wiggle that for us. That would be $1,846,000. It's just a suggestion. I ask.
I appreciate that, and I, you know, the last thing that I want to do is be rigid in this discussion at all, and you know, taking away the cash component was one of the things that we did, and I honestly, with my investors, the lender involved, and everybody involved, I think I tried to kind of lay my cards out on the table as clearly as I could, that it was, we were really at the point where it was sort of the last effort to try to make this happen. And so I'd say that amount we're asking for is something that I don't think I could get it passed by my investors, our lender, because it affects the debt service coverage, it affects the return on equity of the partners, and like I said, it's already down to a point where it's reduced to where it really doesn't make sense any lower. And I've spent a lot of time vetting that out and trying to get to that point. And you know, I guess I try to make it clear. I again don't want to be rigid. I don't want to, but I tried to just kind of lay it on the line and say this is kind of.
So the answer is no.
Respectfully, yes.
All right, let's ask another, while we're talking scenarios here. I mean, one of the things that I was thinking of, and, you know, once again, this is just, you know, we're throwing it out here for discussion purposes, was, you know, the first 5 years, you know, doing the 3% rebate, and then doing 1.5% for years 6 through 10. But at the end of 5 years, as we had more data, we could go back and increase that. We couldn't decrease it, but we could increase it if we thought it was appropriate. Is that something that would be, you know, based on your numbers that were in the pro forma, you know, almost 1.8. So just a little bit different than what he was saying, but.
Yeah, and
I mean, same answer.
I'd have to give the same answer.
Okay.
And I don't like being in that position, and I wish I would have held something back to negotiate with, but I just didn't do that. And maybe that's a bad negotiating tactic, but I was just trying to come to the point where we could make this happen. So my apologies.
All right, thank you.
You know, I think it is important to note that, you know, they're asking for the money that they're going to generate and no existing A&P funds and no other sales tax rebates. And I think an important part of this is also from the city standpoint, I think ASU is a big partner in this, and without that, it probably wouldn't happen based on their lease and their agreement of their lease. If the city were going to do this without ASU's help, we would have to go out and find the land, buy the land, like he's done in other scenarios. I'm just throwing it out there, so.
With Mr. O'Reilly laying the cards on the table, I think it's time that we put something on the floor for.
Before you do that, Chris, can I ask one question? I mean, does Ed or Bill, do y'all have any comments on the city's perspective? I mean, that's fine if you don't. I think we understand that this is important, but I just want to give y'all an opportunity to speak. And since Mayor Perrin wasn't here, if y'all wanted to, so, all right. Back to you, Chris.
Make a motion to go ahead and approve the request.
I think
I'll
we
second it.
we've got a second. I think we do need to add, make sure we understand what we are making a motion for, that we were looking at a 10-year rebate of 3% of the A&P tax. I do think we should consider a cap on that. Is that going to be a problem if we cap it out at the 2.5 million range?
Based on our current pro forma, hopefully we do better than that, and that's a point I haven't brought up.
Okay, a cap of 2.5 million. And then also, just the terms of the rebate would be where we would collect it and give it back to you semi-annually or annually or quarterly or something that's negotiable or something we can work out with the city accountant.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
I'll amend my motion to reflect that.
okay, so the motion we have is a 10-year rebate of 3% of the A&P tax with a cap of $2.5 million and a deadline to start within 90 days. Does that give you enough room to get it started? So I'm gonna state it again, just to be clear, because I keep adding stuff as we go. I apologize, but
Well, does Chris need to
Chris,
amend his
you need-
motion? He's the one making the motion that you're adding to.
I'll amend to reflect all of the changes.
okay, and the changes is, I'll state it again, a 10-year rebate of the 3% of the A&P tax with a cap of $2.5 million with a deadline to start within 90 days. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Got a motion on the floor? Need a,
Second.
Dan seconds it. Any discussion?
Well, yeah, from anybody? And we've already had quite a bit of discussion.
Any discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. If there's any other business, I do want to thank y'all for coming down. Well, I mean, I know it was short notice. I know we're going into holiday week and everything. I do really appreciate y'all coming down on a Friday. I think it was greatly important for y'all to come down and meet everybody and present the information, and I just want to thank you for that. Dr. Damhouse, thank you for coming in. Joe, do you have something else?
Well, you had mentioned that you wanted me to comment on the budget.
Yes, well, I did ask him to give us an update because some of the projects that we funded, the turf, the lights at the softball complex and the restrooms were contingent upon the budget approval from the city. Are we?
Well, I'll give you an update on that. At this last week's, or this week's finance meeting, we voted to forward the budget on to council. So it'll be going on 3 readings, but 2 items that are in the budget, or two areas that are in the budget, is the turf at Joe Mack Campbell, and also about $1.2 million worth of improvements out at Southside relating to lighting, concession stands, and fencing. So obviously, it has to go through full council. That goes in, and it's a tough budget this year. I think it's a good budget, but it's a tough budget, and that's why I mentioned earlier about the looking at additional sources of revenue and the partnerships and how important it is going forward in the city, because there's a lot of things that we need to spend money on, and we're going to spend money on, and get the return. But it's going to be important to have partners as we do this. So.
Thank you for that update. Any other business? Okay. Thank you for all attending, and meeting is adjourned.